George Bruno with the 21 Report, the 21 Convention Patriarch Edition, and I'm talking with my friend Alexander Cortes. Welcome.
How you doing, George?
Good, good.
Good to see you, as always.
Yeah. How was the convention this weekend?
I really enjoyed it. The convention, for those of you guys probably remember, if you've watched the last 21 Report from October, 21 Convention, very large event, very large mixed range in terms of the ages. This one, it was fathers, obviously. But having that element here where it's men who have children, have professional lives, pretty much all of them. They've lived, they have a depth of experience that a younger guy doesn't have. There's a seriousness in the conversation and a depth to it and a nuance that hadn't been there before, I felt. And there was a new level of discourse for the male sphere, since a lot of what typically gets talked about is men who are at this entry point of, I want to get better with women. I need to physically get myself improved. I need to sort of rearrange my mindset as to how do I approach my relationships. But now you have men who've had relationships and they've had kids and they've been modeling something for them. So their perspectives on it, it's just at a whole different level. And that was something that really impressed me in the conversations I had with the gentlemen in the hallways, at dinner, during lunch, where we used to be talking about, like how do you model good behavior? How do you establish a good relationship with your wife so your son can see how men and women interact with each other, because you're really playing out for the future. Yeah, and that was cool. It was purely very cool, and fatherhood is something I've thought about a lot. And like I said, it took everything to this new unexplored territory where I thought was very, very healthy.
I noticed the same thing. There was a seriousness here because the topic is very serious, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, how can it not be? Yeah, I expressed this during a sort of Red Man show where I've always thought that masculinity at its highest form, it's expressed through fatherhood. Because at that point, the consequences of everything you do, everything becomes a third order effect. It's not just your behavior and how it's going to affect you, it's how it's going to affect your child today, tomorrow, and into the future. So it's almost like a fourth level of that. And you really have to consider, what do I actually believe? What are my principles? What are my values? And what is this going to do for my son? What is this going to do for my daughter? If I make a mistake now, I'm going to know it. Yeah. Which is a very wild thing to think about. As a single person, my behavior reflects me, and it certainly can affect other people. But I'm the one that's going to hit hard. But when you have a child, it's not just going to be you; it's going to be them. So what do you really believe? What is your relationship with the world at large? It forces you to confront sort of all the incoherencies and sort of hypocrisies, like in what you think about things, on so many levels.
Yeah. I've been talking with a lot of the speakers and a lot of the guests here with topics that are hopeful, positive, optimistic. And I've talked to so many people on the outside who have said things like, when I mentioned children, they would say, oh, I would never want to bring a child into this world the way this world is. And to me, that's kind of like dark and despair and gloom and doom. What would you say to the guy who or the woman, even the woman who has that mindset? I wouldn't want to bring a child into this world.
I would tell that person that, to use sort of like a psych term, they need a cognitive reframe. You have to consider that humanity, and you really have to take a step back from like someone's own bullshit. Like, well, this is what I think. I'm like, let's take a step back. We're living in 2019. We obviously have technology that enables us a huge level of power over our lives, an enormous level of abundance. During the Dark Ages, during the Black Plague, the bubonic plague, 25% of the population is dying. There's still people having children. People are still reproducing. People are still raising families. People are still believing that the future is going to be, if not a better version of the present, but it will still be a living version of the present. Things are not going to continue on into this sort of, I don't know what you even call it, sort of like this presupposed death spiral where everything ends. So like that level of cynicism, I think someone has to really confront that. Like, why do you really believe that? Because there's also a level of like almost a cop-out to that. Everything's going to end. There's no point. So what does that say about your behavior? Mm-hmm. If I tell you that in 10 years, the world comes to an end, 12 years, whatever the lunacy is now, well, is there any consequence to anything I do then? I guess nothing matters.
Right.
Like, that's a very easy way to never have to examine anything in what you're doing. Or to never consider, like, do you actually value anything at all? Do you have relationships? Do you love people? Does your job, does anything matter to you about yourself? Apparently not. And then, people, when you ask it to them that way, it's like, oh, okay, maybe you're not so committed to that idea.
Yeah.
There's enormous level of mobilization today, like with the economy, with everything, where you do have the power to change quite readily at your fingertips. You can click a video and watch a play, and something could change you. So this idea of the future being, this terrible, awful, no good realm that we're all going to live in, I just find it's just very shallow. It's very shallow. It's very flippant. It very much is like a cop out.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, I don't want to have kids. I'm like, you want to be selfish, is what you're telling me. You're very content with being purely selfish.
Yeah.
In the way that you can almost consider sinful.
Yeah. I've thought that there has never in history been an ideal time to have children, because every era has had its problems.
Mm-hmm. Well, you always have challenges. Perhaps there was a point. I mean, obviously you're of more years than myself, but 19 this is always cliche. The 1950s, maybe 80s, 1950, 2000, the American dream period. For some people that did sort of exist, but even for others then it did not. There's still poverty. There's still people who didn't achieve that. Then even prior to that, like think of, we talk about how bad the world's supposed to be getting. Think of the people who grew up during the Great Depression, 1930s. What was their view of the future? Mm-hmm. Or even when the stock market crashed, then it was 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. And people lost everything. Everybody's literally poor, and they're living in dust double dirt towns. Mm-hmm. But they're still having kids. They're still trying to make their way to a better environment. They're still just trying to survive, and guess what people did?
Yeah.
And that produced a very strong generation of people. So like not investing in children, like kids are sort of your test of like whether you really love life.
Yeah.
Are you going to fail that test before you even take it? Maybe.
Yeah. Having children is like planting a tree. A tree is for the future. Like you will never live long enough to really enjoy a fully grown tree. And, we're going to, as our children grow up, we're going to be older, and they're the ones who are our legacy. Our names and our character and our genes live on through our children.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's the question of fatherhood. It is about legacy ultimately. What am I doing that will outlive, my time on this earth?
Yeah.
Hopefully it's something.
Yeah. You have a new venture, or I would say you're looking at a new venture and some collaboration with other content creators, and I was pretty excited to hear about it, and I know it's in the very infantile stages at this point. And I love seeing collabs like this. Do you want to share anything about it?
Definitely. So it's called Self-Optimization Summit. So for those of you guys who likely are aware, so Ed Lattimore and Tanner Guzzi. So all three of us are very personal friends. And we decided to do this actually over a year ago. So we've been sort of playing it out, putting a lot of, processing into it for a long time.
You've done really good at keeping it quiet, because I just heard about it just now. That's good.
Mm-hmm. But it's called Self-Optimization Summit, and it was sort of this collective, how should I say, like this dialogue we had where Ed and I get along very well. I talked to Tanner in the past, and then we sort of arrived at this point where, like, each of us have a certain collective skill set that's very complementary. Obviously, people know me for being sort of like the physical fitness guy. And then, Tanner obviously is, he's the one that does style and presence. But if you look at each of us, and, Ed too, he sort of like known for like sort of the mindset, now he's moving to personal branding. All of us have sort of made pivots into what we do, where, people know me for fitness, but there also is an element for those who sort of get to know my content. There's an element of philosophy and self-development and mindset and cognitive development. Tanner is truly very much patriarchal. He has 4 children. He's very devoted to his family. He's a religious leader in his community. He can really speak to that at depth. And Ed, same thing. He went from being a heavyweight boxer, got his physics degree, now is in the personal branding realm where he's like sort of really mastering the social media game. So there's sort of like a level of being a Renaissance man, I'd like to say, with all three of us, where there's multiple levels of what we can offer to somebody. Mm-hmm. And there's, to use a cliche term, we're all firing on all cylinders. Mm-hmm. We're all physically fit. We all run our own businesses or businesses, multiple. We all have good relationships with our family. We're all men. We're pretty well established in our confidence and our approach to things, our ability to problem solve. So we had this idea: what if we had a self-optimization summit where we put sort of all those elements together, and we take men who they're past the beginner stage. They're already trying to get fit. They're already trying to address these things. We take a group of men and we really develop them to the highest level that we can within that week's time frame, and give them a real strategy plan. That if you let's say you've already gone from 0 to 50, you want to go from 50 to 100, and that's something that doesn't get addressed enough, I think, sort of in the market at large. It's very easy to speak to beginners. I can tell you need to go lift weights and you go do these things. Be more confident. Yeah, that's very generic advice. But what comes next after that? Yeah, and then even for the gentlemen here, they've had children, they have jobs, they have professions. They're not struggling with these deep questions of self-confidence and I don't need to go to the gym. I guess they know that already. Mm-hmm. So what exists for them? So we had with SOS, we had this idea that if we can put together this intensive experience where you can work with the three of us for a week and have these serious conversations over and over again for an hour, and we can really dive into what you'd like to improve on, what you are quote unquote struggling with, or what is an element of your business where you think the three of us could really benefit you. And that's really the personal and professional they always merge over. So we're playing that for November. I want to say it's the week of November 4th through the 10th, and it'll be in Los Angeles. And we're excited about it, obviously. Yeah. It's also a chance for three of us to just spend more time together and hang out at a very basic level. Yeah. But I think that'll be a great thing. And then, like I said, as the male sphere grows, and we have these different things coalescing, I think what will emerge out of it is a very, very high caliber of man. Yeah. And we like to sort of lead the spear point on that.
Yeah. I think it sounds exciting. It's going to be transformative.
I think so.
It's immersion. Mm-hmm. That's what it is, total immersion. What advice would you give someone about, even though you're not a father, and I will say yet.
Thank you, George.
Not yet, and I'm sure you will be someday. Talk to some guy out there who maybe is filled with despair, maybe he's nihilistic, about fatherhood. You have thoughts about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'd love to have you talk to that guy.
So, if you're a man and you're in a position where you're having that sort of very stereotypical kind of nihilism, where I feel negative about the future, I would never want to have kids, you really have to consider what the definition of masculinity is, and whether it means anything to you on a deep level beyond just the shallow stuff of it means being a man, being strong, but being physically attractive. Women like me. It's very generic. Hopefully I make enough money that I can pay for myself. Yes, it is those things, but what is it that inspires people about a man? What is it that draws you to a man, that you see him and he fills you with a belief somehow that you have more potential than yourself? You almost have to go back, I think, for a lot of men to childhood, where when you watched a cartoon, when you watched a superhero, when you watched someone that was monogamous and larger than life, and you want to be that guy, you want to become that guy, because you represent something to you that a man could go out into the world and he could change things, he could lead people, he could have a positive effect, not just on himself, but everything around him. And do you have that within yourself? On a very profound level, that has to start as a belief. Nobody takes themselves from a place of despair, to a place of prosperity simply just by action. Does it require action? Yes, it absolutely does. Everything requires action. But it starts as belief. It starts as potential. Your potential within you should always exceed your actions outside of you. So do you have anything within you that you can start tapping into? That is the energy, that's the mindset, that's the kind of man that when you meet him, and most every man has usually met somebody where they were really impressed by that guy and they almost envy that they could be him. They have that kind of energy. They have that kind of energy where he just seems like he's infinite. Like this guy does not stop. This man does not stop moving. This man is always going to be doing, creating, solving a problem, living, becoming a better version of himself. That's all within you. That's all within you, and that's what you have to look for. And even if you don't see it, can you start expressing it? If you can start expressing it, you can go from 0 to 1, and then you can go from 1 to 2, and you go from 2 to 3. Then you do have that. You do have that, and as I said, it starts as a belief. It starts as a belief, and then you will transmit and manifest that into action. And that's how you can take yourself from a very, very dark place to a very, very enlightened place. But if you're not willing to ask yourself that question, if you've dismissed all potential within yourself at all, well, then you know where that goes, and that will always go down. Life is heaven or hell, depending upon your orientation. You either look down or you will look up. So which one will it be? And that's always the question I tell people. I can ask you the question, but you'll have to give yourself the answer. I can't give that to you. You take that out of yourself.
I love that. I think you're going to make a great father.
Thanks, George.
Because you're a great man.
I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.